Greetings and salutations, friends, and welcome back. Today, we're going to have a special guest, Kal Korff. You've heard him mention, we've all heard him mention a few different times on different broadcasts about this incredible software that he had developed for UFO research. I don't know very much about it, but from the screenshots and things that I've seen, it looks pretty exciting and looks like a valuable tool that we could all use in our research efforts. So without further ado, let's bring Kal Korff in. There he is. Hey, Kal Korff.
Hey, Stephen. How you doing?
Better. Good. How you doing, Mr. Korff?
Been up all night getting stuff ready for your show. Got a lot of stuff to go over. So,
great.
Let's get into it. I've prepared a bunch of slides that go through things, and basically I've divided everything up into three parts, maybe four, depending on how your thinking goes. Real quickly, I want to recap some background historical stuff united around the theme Real History Matters, because it does, and remind especially the younger generation of things they don't know, because a lot of people who are putting fake and phony deceptive stuff out there just aren't telling you the truth. They don't
imagine that.
Yeah. Then, of course, I'll go into the software, announce who are our first round partners. You're, of course, one of them. The idea is to get the software out there. It's going to be free for everybody. I want to emphasize that. And the idea is to beat it up and test it in the real world conditions and work together to come up with a standard that's going to raise the standards of this field. And then the other part I prepared is I'm sorry to be blunt about this, a very devastating expose against phony Dr. Kevin Randle, and I'll get into that as well. So anyway, let's get into it. Can you see on my screen the slides?
You can share your screen. There's a share screen button.
Okay, because I'm on a different program that shares too, so I want to make sure that it's the same thing. Screen sharing, okay. Fine.
Yeah, there'll be a button right in the center at the bottom that says share screen, and then you could choose application or whatever that you want to share. Hopefully this will work.
Okay.
B says Cal's not messing around. He busted out the black turtleneck. He means business tonight.
Actually, I grabbed the wrong shirt. What happened is when I wear a lot of black and dark because I have no fashion sense. You can tell by the way I dress.
I learned a long time ago that if you just wear black clothes, 10 years later in pictures, nobody's going to say that you were out of fashion or that you were like wearing stupid shit because it was in fashion,
Yeah, exactly. Now I'm getting a message that Chrome wants to record my screen.
Yeah, you just say allow.
Yeah. So let me put it in there, give it permission since I'm locked down. There we go.
Michael says, this is going to be interesting. I agree. Oh, we lost you. Oh, we somehow lost Mr. Korff. I don't know how that happened, Mr. Korff. You probably need to drop back in. And we'll see if we can't get this thing working. I didn't think that maybe you should have just sent me the slides. Oh,
it had to quit and reboot because you haven't given Apple the secret code yet from your Altos operating system to fix that issue. So anyway,
you're gonna blame me? Really? I don't know what's going on.
No. No, I'm excited over your project. So
it's a miracle that we're running this stream from it. You know how much work I had to do under the hood to make sure this thing works reliably, but it's working as or better than on Windows. So
well, yeah.
Okay. I see a third. I see it. Now I see this.
Okay, so you can see it now. Okay. Yeah. All right. So anyway, let's get into this. All right. So basically, what we're doing. Let's start with some updates. What we're doing is these are the books that are going to be coming out this year. Okay, they're in the pipeline, well along. The actual books in the middle are ready to go. It's just that the number one priority is the book on Donald Trump for obvious reasons. And that was supposed to be the third one in this series, but because of what happened with the election, which is relevant to the software and Kevin Randle and all that other stuff, it is this mindset that we have as a country today. And I've talked about this on your show before. I've sent you the slides. I have a few of them here from that, where scientific studies have shown and proven that American culture is predisposed to believing in conspiracies. Half the country believes in a various form or another, to whatever degree, that the election was rigged. So out of concern for separating fact from fiction, which is what I've done ever since October 19th, 1973, and I remember that date clearly, I felt I had to jump in and do these books, because what the books do is they separate fact from fiction. So real quickly, I take on the top 10 election conspiracies, and they are destroyed. They are fully sourced. The idea is to do this like Roswell, to such a degree that if someone still lies or denies it, it's obvious to everyone that they are a denier. You know, people say you can't make a horse drink water. That's never been true. You can. What you can't do is force the horse to like the taste of the water. And we must
That's a good analogy, actually.
It's very
Right.
true.
Yeah,
we must never, ever allow the truth to be ignored, or we say we don't like it, so we're just not going to go there. That is not right. That holds human progress back. So again, these are the books that are coming out, and I'm real happy with them. Let me go back real quickly to the Donald Trump one. You can see again the claims about Dominion voting machines switching votes for Biden over Trump. They were connected to the internet, etc. All of that wasn't true. The next book, the Hillary Clinton book, this is the second series in the Real History Matters series. It covers many things. This is the American politics one. Remember the previous election, she refused to admit that she lost fair and square and that Donald Trump kicked her ass because just enough people didn't want her to be president. Well, she had this fake study that she commissioned, her super PAC, about voter fraud in Wisconsin. And it's not true. It is a deliberate lie. So that's exposed in the book. And then the third one about Al Gore, that's relevant because I'd written that in India. That explains what's going on with the current Democratic Party. The Agenda 21 UN globalization push is back on again, folks. Yay. And then, of course, Al Gore's in there making false claims to help justify that. And the case, unless...
Yeah, weren't all the glaciers in Antarctica supposed to be melted by now or something?
In the Himalayas, yeah, I was in.
Yeah, there were some huge claims that he made in that documentary that just none of them have come true. Not to say that I'm a climate denier. I believe in climate change, but I think that people are a little bit alarmist when it comes to
Absolutely
how quickly we're gonna all be underwater and this and that. These things take thousands and thousands of years, maybe tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of years. And plus, isn't there like there's just a regular, the Earth warms and cools over millennia, right? And different phases and things. So I never trusted him. I never trusted him. And I'm an environmental guy, though. I really am. Like, we recycle. I try to not be a jerk off. I'm good with forest conservation at the cabin and taking care of the natural resources there, But, geez. That guy went way out on a limb.
He did. And I want to be clear because, again, this issue is so polarized. People are polarized over issues they're passionate about, right or wrong, religion being probably the best example, right or wrong. I do not deny that humans impact the environment. I've always been pro-environmentalist. I remember the days when it was simple. Don't pollute. Give a hoot, And I try to remind the young people that it's that simple. If you don't pollute, you don't have a problem. And I hate pollution, of course, and I've lived in.
Well, I always thought, don't you think, though, that the problems with environmental destruction are really not based on individuals? They're based on the corporations. They do far more damage than an individual.
But Stephen,
individuals can.
You're right, except corporations can't do shit. Neither can political parties without people. So it's people, Stephen.
I guess, yeah. Okay. I'll give you that.
Yeah. So anyway, that's what these books are about. And it is out of concern for helping to fight back against some of this polarization. I've covered these issues many times as a journalist overseas for years. So for UFO people, they don't know this, whatever, it's fine. But anyway, these are...
Yeah, I was kind of surprised to see all those newspapers that you wrote for that. And I never knew that you did that. I only know you from the UFO books. So people may be surprised to learn that Kal's actually written in a lot of different newspapers, editorials and articles and fact-based research stuff on politics. I was surprised about that. I didn't know you like covered that stuff.
Yeah, I cover a lot of areas. I always have, and I'll get into some of that in a bit here because it is relevant to the software. All of this is related. I've always believed, ever since I understood at a very young age in primary school, that life is one big relational database. So regarding more books coming out, these are in the pipeline now. They will be out in February and March. I've talked to you and Melissa about adding an update of what Mikey Horn did. We can just add that to the book for our project. And then multimedia elements are being added to these books. So what you'll be able to do, folks, is you'll be able to point your camera at them on certain pages, and interesting things will happen. I'll just say that. And then, of course, the Annie Jacobson book is being updated to add more stuff that destroys her story. Other stuff coming out again. This is the next book coming out in the pipeline, and this is relevant again to the software today because the person who I hope will help me with this book, if not, I'll be the sole author on the title, but I've talked to her about doing it together, is the wonderful Erica Lukes. And Erica Lukes is a UFO researcher who recently received an archive of the late researcher Anne Druffel. Anne Druffel was a friend of mine. She studied this case here, the Heflin case. That's why this book is about it. And this book solves that case. The purpose of every volume of this, as you know, Stephen, is to solve a case and move on. Take it or leave it. Whatever the truth is, we go with it. So you will not only see how Heflin faked his photos, his confession is in there, and the book consists of archival material that both Erica have and I have, because Stanton Friedman is the one who put me on this case, and that's in there too, proven to solve it one way or another, because what happened is people picked whatever side they wanted to believe, which again is ufology, it's not ufology. So that's
I think that's an interesting case, especially because I know that I had heard that he admitted to faking them.
He did.
But then there's a lot of these. There were some pretty credible image analysts that looked at it and said it couldn't be a model or a small thing. No. It was 30 feet wide, and they must have been totally wrong in their analysis.
No, in fact, and this is proven in the book, the Woods, who endorsed the fake MJ12 files, they misled Anne Druffel. That's disgusting. Secondly, the analysts who were credible said there were only two possibilities for the photo. Either it was a large object far away, or it was a small object very close to the camera. What we discovered, I discovered it, was that there was a close-up lens for his Polaroid camera, and that the last photo, which was suspected of not even being taken that same day, was actually the first photo he took, and that gave him the idea to fake it. Yeah, so it's all in there. And it's.
And by the way, in our new intro, there's a newspaper article about that case that says, that says like finally genuine photo of flying saucer, and it has the picture. So,
yeah, but again, Heflin called us. He called Bob Kvyat. Kvyat called me. He wanted money. He needed bills for his medical expenses. Explained everything he did. And it was I who told Bob Kvyat when he asked me what to do. I said, don't pay him anything. We cannot reward fraud. I feel sorry for his health condition. It's irrelevant to the case, but we're not going to pay him $5,000 just because he's now telling the truth. No. So another book coming out too, and this is the first of 4 that destroy phony Dr. Kevin Randle, I'm being blunt, is this book on the right here, the Roswell UFO crash.
Here we go.
No, this is. I'm sorry, I'm going to be
listen. I get it, but you understand that as a show, this puts me this back and forth between the two is putting me in a very difficult position, and I want to be like as diplomatic as possible and let you both speak. But
now, Stephen, you're fine. You're doing a great job, talking to both of us. I'm glad that Kevin Randle is finally addressing some of this. I just hope he doesn't continue to duck me 15 years or so to debate, because he lied to you about saying I never showed up. And I'll prove that. I've got images relevant to that prove I was there. And I'll tell you the full story.
You know what, though? Just so that our audience is aware that you guys were supposed to debate years ago about the case, and then that didn't happen. And then, I haven't asked him if he would come and do it here, but you're saying that you would if he'd be willing.
I'm
aware, because I can talk to him. I'll try to, try to make that happen. I think people would like to see it.
Yeah, let's come back to this in a moment, because I account for all this, because I did catch some of what he said, not all of it, because I was at work. But of what I found, Well, I'll get to that in the presentation here. Anyway, the book on the right here is important because I was the first person, literally nobody else, who solved the debris photo issue and the Ramey memo deciphering it. So I have to shake my head when I hear phony Dr. Kevin Randle and Dave Rudiak talk about getting down to the molecular level, even though that's not true.
Well, listen, though, but just to be clear, though, like I did look into his education, and the man has 4 degrees. One of them is from a online university. But I called and checked with that university, and they're accredited by the United States. And if you get a doctorate degree from that university, it's acceptable for employment with the government, with the military. So I think it's a bit unfair calling him phony doctor. It's a real degree. You might not like that he went to an online school to get it, but it's a real accredited.
No, it is not. And it is not. And Stanton Friedman and I proved it. These reports are a matter of public record, Stephen. Here's what happened. The university that he got his degree from was a correspondence school. It was on probation and it was getting its accreditation removed. That's a matter of public record. After they read the Riot Act, Randle got his degree when they were not legit. And then they switched over to being completely legit. In fact, I was going to enroll in that same school.
I haven't heard that. All I did was check into the school and find that.
Okay, and there's articles I can send you that were published at the time talking about them not being credible. It had nothing to do with Randle, because I'll tell you what started this investigation into his claims of having a PhD. First of all, I know what it takes to get a PhD. Anybody who has grown up with scientists would. Most people don't. Usually you have to make a original discovery that is peer-reviewed and verified. It's how the body of human knowledge progresses. So when I heard that Randle had a PhD, I'm like, well, how can I square any such theoretical breakthrough in whatever subject? PhDs are wonderful. Doesn't matter who gets them. With what he writes, the crap about Roswell, where he blatantly lies. And I'm going to prove it here in this thing here. I couldn't square the two. So I called Friedman. I said, are you aware that Randle's got a PhD apparently? And Stan and I discussed it. I'm going to show you some of those documents here in a moment. And we both called that university. And I said, I'll tell you what, Stan, I found out this, and it's in the paper here about them in probation. I'm going to enroll in the school and get a PhD as well. And then I can say I got one and we'll take them out that way. But I never did, because I left the Bay Area. I moved up and went to work at Boeing. And then I also decided I'm not going to pay money to get a fake degree. There's no point. And as the newspaper articles at that time prove, this university, to its credit, decided to clean its act up and become legit. If he started again today, that's the key caveat, folks, which he doesn't tell you, it would be straight up legit. There would be no issue, but that is not what happened at the time. It reminds me of Dr. Marcel Vogel. Dr. Marcel Vogel got his PhD, even though he worked at IBM, from the University of Metaphysics. That was required. So that ends that. Back to the book here, and this is what's important. It doesn't matter about Randle. This book solves the debris issue. It proves there was never a debris switch. If there was never a debris switch, the whole narrative of Roswell is changed. The reason this book is important is because I have the original photos that Major Marcel signed off on, that Bill Moore gave me. We showed them to the media in a press event that has never appeared on the internet. Years ago, there was no internet back in 1981. Didn't exist, had yet to be invented. So we went through all of this. I went to Stanton. I said, Stanton, we've got a problem. I read him basically the Riot Act, the equivalent of Houston, we've got a problem. No, Stan, you've got a problem. You're following something that isn't really what it has been hyped to be. And this caused a problem between Stanton Friedman, myself, Bill Moore, and why I ended up gravitating more towards Moore and distanced myself from Friedman because of these 2 books here. And I can prove all of this. These 2 books change the UFO narrative, because the book on the left, the Zeta Reticuli Conspiracy, it solves the Hill case like nobody else has. You will point your camera at this book, folks, and up will appear, rising up off the pages, a artificial or augmented reality star map that shows the real Hill map as it exists in space versus what the UFO nutters don't
the UFO nutters. Come
No,
on.
no. When I'm saying nutters, these are people who deliberately ignore the data. Friedman was one of them.
I like data, and I like to be able to definitively prove with data something is accurate or not accurate. And I would
That's
agree
the
with
goal.
you. I did it my own sort of deep dive into this map, and I went to many learned astrophysicists and astronomers, and they all agree with your assessment that the original story that the map was genuine was basically falsely. It doesn't match up. It
Yep.
doesn't match up to Zeta Reticuli. So all of this stuff about aliens coming from Zeta Reticuli really did originate with the Barney and Betty Hill case and that star
Yeah.
map. And then it turns out that star map does not show Zeta Reticuli star system at all.
Exactly. And I'm the only person who ran the trap between Bob Schaefer, Phil Klass, Charles Atterberg, Marjorie Fish, Betty Hill, everybody, to see who was right. Because I told Stan I just written a 216-page report on UFOs for my teacher. And I went to bat for the Hill case because that was the astronomical data that was valid at the time. But then more accurate astronomical data came out years later. It wasn't her fault. She did the best with what she could. But it is Stanton Friedman's fault that he didn't get with the truth. So I spent a year corresponding with astronomer Atterberg every day, throwing everything at him, running back and forth between Friedman, everybody. And the documents are all there, okay? And if you look here, people are being manipulated. Look here on the left. And by the way, this previous slide is the original Atterberg file, which is published in the new book, Case Closed. Now, if you look at the original book here, The Interrupted Journey by John Fuller, you can see that this, of course, was the original account of the incident. They glossed on the star map. But look at what the publishers are doing here. It says here on the left, the 2 lost hours aboard a flying saucer, in quotes. To anyone with an IQ over 10, that means it's a claim, it's not a fact. Okay. Then it says the strangest story of our lifetime, blah, blah, blah. But look at Friedman's book and the hyperbole, the true story of the world's first documented alien abduction. Really? Well, first of all, it isn't true. Secondly, we can't prove it was the first documented alien abduction because we don't know when aliens have abducted anybody. It could have been done.
Yeah, you could be right about that.
Okay.
Yeah, they could be abducting cavemen. We don't know, right?
Exactly. All right. So we destroy it. Now, here's the thing. In the interrupted journey, again, you got this emphasis here and this hype. Okay. And you notice that Stanton has written this with Betty Hill's niece. Big deal. Betty Hill was a paranormal nut. She talked to UFOs all the time. I confronted Stan about that. He said, oh, no, she's lost it now, but she was credible back then. Oh, really? Okay, Stan, whatever. Okay, so here's some
Well,
of
in his
the
defense, maybe she got deeper and deeper in, because I know many people that when they start the rabbit hole of UFOs and watching documentaries and reading books, they're still, they got one leg in reality and one leg into this mythology. But it seems to me that the longer someone spends reading the books and the documentaries and going to conferences and listening to lectures, they get worse and worse into the woo side, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a possibility that she was a little more credible when he knew her, and then she went full on UFO nutter, as you would say later, right?
She was more credible, meaning she wasn't surrounding herself with yes people and conspiracy nuts and cosmic Watergate types, but it became a very bad feedback loop. She used to send me her images of UFOs, and I'm sorry, she not only, I mean, come on, train lights and things like that. It was really bad. I felt bad for her. She was a nice.
Yeah, I got a friend that sends me these pictures that are horrible and just show a little light speck up in the sky, and he swears they're UFOs, and he's been sending them to me for years, and I'm always like, get a telephoto lens or something, bro, because that could be anything. That could be a plane, a helicopter, it could be a cell phone tower with a light on the top blinking. I don't know. Yeah, some people just too much want to believe.
So the entire file, because back then there was no internet, I had to type these letters up on my Smith Corona typewriter using my 2 fingers as I do.
God damn, you're old, Kal Korff. You got to use a typewriter, bro. My dad had a typewriter.
Yeah, we have to. I should have had an image to explain to young people what a typewriter is.
Yeah, maybe. I just remember my dad. He hated it, and it would take him like 4 days to write a letter. because it had to be perfect when he was done typing it, you know. So he'd like get the white out, do it again, go down the corner where somebody had a Xerox and fix it, he'd paste stuff in. God, we have it easy now, Cal. We don't have to do any of that shit.
Absolutely. And I'm old enough where I was there in the beginning of the Smith Corona days, gravitated towards the Artec word processors, then of course went to Apple and got into the Mac and everything. Wrote software and other things like that. So I've seen the whole cycle. Used to start, my first company I formed was a graphic arts company called Spectral Graphics, Fremont. And we used to do it the old fashioned way. I remember the first lesson real quickly that I had delivering to clients, master final artwork for newsletters I was printing for them and designing. I forgot about basic physics, meaning I left the paste up boards in the back of the car. It was warm, the wax melted.
There goes your presentation.
When I showed it to the customer, they slid off. I was like, I'm so sorry. So I went to spray mount, but you know, now it's all electronic. Anyway, the book again proves, using modern astronomical data from space, orbitable instruments that measured the stars, the most accurate to date, it corrects all this stuff. It also shows that Stanton Friedman knew. It proves he knew. That's why there's these original letters, that it was never true. It's just he refused to acknowledge it. And that's on him, I'm sorry to say. And I warned him I was going to publish this when I got back to the US. And of course, I did come back, and then he passed away. All right, this is what I'm trying to stop here. Exploitation and the attempted continuous rewriting of history for the worse. You have another UFO nutter butter conspiracy producer out there, Bryce Zabel, Mr. MJ12, Friedman fanboy. He's, of course, the main guy trying to get this thing done. And that's why we started this project in India, the Zeta Reticuli conspiracy, years ago. And I warned Stan, you know, you're going to hear footsteps, and he knew what was coming. All right. So anyway, that's all happening, and why that book is relevant. What else is next here? Ah, yeah. And this is a reminder for the young people, and even phony Dr. Kevin Randle. Again, the media captured, this is a San Francisco Examiner. It's a slightly big newspaper. It captured this shocked moment on my face when Friedman is at my house promoting Roswell and UFOs are real. And he's starting to talk about how the space shuttle is going to bring down the UFOs because we're going up there now, and because we're immature, and we're not a member of the Galactic Federation, and we have nuclear weapons, and our favorite pastime is tribal warfare, you know, his usual sound bites. And I'm like, do you really think so? In the media, there was more than one reporter documented this, and they noted that I was different. They said here, for example, Korff, who has acquired such sobriquets as Brain and Einstein from Kennedy classmates, drafted an atomic bomb design as part of an 8th grade project. Yes, I did. I actually won the science contest over that. And then it talks about how I happened to start this in 73. I amassed over 1,500 photos, traded with Wendell and things like that. Then down here, I say where I give lectures, I usually notice a few have puzzled looks, that they just can't believe this kid is a speaker they've paid to see, he says. But after that initial reaction, there's really no problem. That's true. I remember walking on stage as a kid and people looking around like, why is this kid taking the stage? And then I'd introduce myself and start talking, you know, and give them their $2 worth. That's what Ticketron used to sell the tickets for. And then at the bottom,
Ticketron. Yeah, I remember Ticketron.
Yeah, good old Ticketron. And I'd give all the money to my class. I didn't want to wash cars and sell light bulbs. You know, I didn't mind washing cars if the hot girls were there in the shorts, you know, from school. But other than that, I told the president, Fred Davis, I said, how about I do lectures for you guys and I'll just give you all the money. People eating this stuff up. So like, okay, fine. And that's what I did for a couple of years. It's even in the yearbooks. Okay, so the last item down here, and this is still true today. This UFO research is just what I do. I just think it's a tremendous crime that people think one's career and contribution to society doesn't begin until you're 18. It begins when you're born. He waxes philosophical when queried about his goals. Quote, I just want to help man think of himself as man, not as a Russian or an American or Chinese. Think of the whole planet, not of a nation. If we do that, we won't blow ourselves up. I still feel the same way. I'm not going to apologize for the fact that I've always felt this way. Yeah. All right. So again, that look is precious. And I got a lot of
look at you, man. Okay. Look at you. You look all 70s with the butterfly collar and everything, bro.
Oh, yeah. I invited him over to lecture with me. We had a press conference. I arranged the whole thing. He told me, you know, about the UFO's a real movie about Wendell, that he didn't want the Meyer segment in there, everything. So again, the media I actually got letters from the skeptics pointing out that this was a rare moment that the media actually captured. Houston, we've got a problem moment. So this press conference and getting to know Stan and lecture with him in high school caused problems, because I was inventing a system called UFO Comp, which I'll talk about in a few minutes, to be his archivist. I was Stanton's original archivist when he lived in Union City near me. I lived 2 blocks above him before he moved to Canada.
Oh, that's interesting.
Now, this was the original UFO Comp log, because we had no computers. We had index cards, we had hand entries, and we filed. And what I would do is I would write them in ancient foreign scripts, because I took 7 languages in my freshman year. Sorry, Kevin Randle. And I went ahead and needed to practice them. So I wrote them in German Switzerland script, which you see here. That's my writing. It's not that I have neat writing, but to read Switzerland script, you have to clean it up a bit. And now, of course, those fonts are available digitally. And the reason I mention this is because this is my original master index book here. In fact, I have it right here. Okay. And it's, again, decades old and all kinds of nice stuff in here. But it's got people listed A through Z. And I knew everyone in the UFO field. But there's one name there, Stephen, that isn't in there, Kevin Randle. And the reason Kevin Randle was not in my book and among the 45 scientists that I corresponded with, including Hynek and Friedman and everybody else, is because even as a kid, I saw problems with Kevin Randle. Kevin Randle at that time was from Cedar Rapids, Iowa. So were my parents. I ran the trap on him easy because I still have relatives there. I was married back in Iowa years ago. Again, when it came back to the U.S., then went back to India. Cedar Rapids is where my heritage is from. Small world. So I knew all about Randle, but he didn't know I knew about him. So I pretty much avoided him until I contacted Stan Friedman after he started getting, this Roswell nonsense. I said, Stan, can you believe the nerve of this guy? He's just pulling shit out of his ass and making it up. I'm sorry. Well, that's when Stanton contacted me and said, oh, long time no hear. I'll show you those letters in a moment and let's get him. Okay. So the big problem I have with Randle is, I'm sorry, he doesn't seem to understand basic English. And it's not just Randle. Again, the word debunker, he calls me a debunker, means to separate fact from fiction. But that's not what Randle says. Randle says debunkers have a closed mind. He is simply aping what Stan Friedman made up. Friedman invented that. In fact, the first meeting Friedman and I ever had in May of 1975, when I went to interview him for my teacher as a kid, he explained I had mispronounced the word ufology. I said UFOology because, of course, there's an acronym. It's not a word. It's UFO, right? 3 words, unidentified flying objects. He says, no, it's ufology or ufology. I said, okay. And then he tells me there's also ufology, and he explained the difference. Ufology is when you say things about UFOs which are not derivable from credible data. Doesn't matter what it is. Ufology is a scientific study of UFO data, period. And those definitions are still valid today. So in 1981, at the first issue of the Fair Witness Project, as on the board of directors as a special advisor with Friedman and Moore, and to that project, I started the UFO Dictionary Project, which I have rebooted because in the software, there is a dictionary that will keep you from using stupid terms that don't mean what you're trying to say. And I think that's important. Words are important. They either mean what they do or they mean nothing at all. So again, this page here, it's in every book going forward in the Real History Matters thing. Look at the word debunker. It's from the dictionary. It says that it is just to separate fact from fiction. Okay. So the moment somebody misuses the word debunker, this is my point here, and Randle's one of many, you have to stop them right there. And if they can't get past that point, there's no point in continuing. It's propaganda at that point, not fact. Now, again, the reason I can do all this is because I have a group that is worldwide. Bob Kiviat has talked about it. He's hired it many times. And we study many different areas. In fact, I'm going to list some of the partners here shortly because they're part of the software. And we cover all kinds of stuff. So real quickly, I've got these divisions. Analytics. Without analytics, data is useless. Intelligence. It's been my personal observation that if you don't have good intelligence, it doesn't work out well. I study archaeology, all kinds of archaeology. I study history. I love history. I study arts and literature. Of course, I write books. I also help get books published for other authors. Love philosophy, love religion, as in studying religions and why people believe in that stuff. Politics, of course, I'm very much into that. Social issues, can't separate politics from social issues. Science, I love all science. I'm fascinated by everything I don't know. And of course, I love tech. If I hadn't met a guy named Steve Jobs years ago, I probably would have stayed as a forensics guy and as a lab rat in the police department. But, you know, he changed my life. So the studies that we do are in these areas. I don't do anything that is outside these charters of responsibility, and they are charters of responsibility. We have 12 of them. It used to be Total Research. I then sold that years ago after we did the Kennedy study and Larry King featured it. And then it became Critical Thinkers, and that is now changing. This year, it will launch in a new form where a lot of this will be public, and I'll be releasing products that help others get their data out in these different areas.
Sure.
And so real quickly, as when we met, I do three things with my existence. I either do original research, period. Original research is always important. Or I look at existing issues that have been left incomplete by others for whatever reason, and I try to solve them. Otherwise, if I can't contribute or solve something, I don't bother. Third thing is to take existing issues and see if I can add new things to them. So either finish incomplete research, do original research, or finish or talk about existing issues and try to help people understand them, like this election issue, the fraud, because we need to heal as a country, but do it in a way that you can tell who's lying to you going forward, who's a denier. And if people are deniers about whatever subject, fine. But people need to know what is a real denier versus someone who just is wrong. And most people are wrong. They're not deniers in an extreme sense. And real quickly, all this started on October 19, 1973. And this is when I saw this photo here that you see in front of you, Stephen, taken by Jeffrey Greenhaw. And at this point, you know, as we grow up, we reach a certain age where suddenly the light goes on and you're like, wow.
Yeah, this one was a kind of a wacky case. For those that don't know, do you want to tell like what it actually was in the picture?
Yeah, what happened is I'm in the 6th grade, and we had to bring in newspaper articles about what was going on in the world and summarize them before the teacher and get a point every day. My parents didn't subscribe to a paper. My dad wouldn't do it. It was only 10 cents a day, but he wouldn't do it. Fine. So I would borrow articles, memorize them in the 5-minute break, and talk like a broadcaster, and, you know, just do that. So everybody brought in UFO articles one day. I'm like, what the hell is this? I had no idea. Well, this case was there. A police officer named Jeffrey Greenhaw. He had taken, he was a police chief of this small town in Falkville, Alabama. He had taken 4 Polaroid photos of a creature standing on the road. He chased it. Said his car went off the side of the road. It ran faster than any human I ever saw. So here I am minding my own business. I'm like, well, this is either real or it's not. It can't be like 2 photos are real and 2 are fake. It's either an alien or it's not. It's what we call a binary. And I've always tried to study binary cases, because even if you can't prove it's true, if the other possibility is the only answer, you still got your answer, even if you were wrong. So I don't mind being wrong, because it's actually a good way to learn, at least based on my experience in life. But in this case, I became fascinated by it when I was a young kid, went down the library, devoured everything I could, became totally into the subject. And next thing I know, within a year and a half, I'm doing stuff with Stanton Friedman. So it turns out that this photo was a hoax. And what I loved about it is that, again, we could solve it one way or another. Okay. And again, according to Greenhaw, he drove out to investigate the UFO report, encountered this creature standing in the road. Again, it's either real or it's not. We found out later that it was a hoax. Okay.
Yeah, wasn't there some like high school kids that dressed up in these costumes, right? Made out of aluminum foil and stuff like that.
Yeah, what they did is they had one and then they added foil to it, including the little, you can see near the top on the photo on the far right, at least my far right, the little antenna thing they put up there, you know.
Yeah, you got to have that.
But this is what it was, and it was a hoax, and the guy lost his marriage and was fired and all that. But this was my introduction to the UFO subject. And I remember as a kid thinking, why do adults lie? They're adults. That was my thinking. And when I started reading Adamski's books and reading about lakes on the backside of the moon and things like that, Venus, Meyer going to Venus, it's like, come on, I know enough about astronomy since, second grade. That was my first.
I'm in second grade and I know that's important. Yeah.
So anyway, then what happened is I continued doing my thing. This article has never appeared on the internet because it didn't exist then. And the press started hearing about my stuff when I was a kid. I had massive file cabinets and just thousands and thousands of files. And it mentions here, for example, although Korff doesn't have a college degree in the subject yet, I was thinking whether I should try to get one. I heard people were working on them. He does correspond with and assist many of the prominent scientists who study the saucer phenomenon. Many of the scientists don't know Kal's age, but correspond with him on an adult basis, sharing information and photographs. That's true. They didn't know I was a kid. They thought I was whomever, and they'd share with me all kinds of stuff. They were later shocked I was a kid. So I would hide my age. In fact, I have a letter from Stanton. It's funny. He says, the secret of your age is safe with me, because I swore him to secrecy. And because adults were like, oh, he's a kid, I'm not going to spend time on him. But if they got a letter typed, they thought an adult wrote them or a fellow scientist, even though I never claimed to be one, I certainly could argue my case. It was amazing how this stuff worked. So it says here, taking the subject very seriously, he has amassed possibly a third largest collection, blah, 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 shares the photos, many of which have been proven fakes with other ufologists. Again, Wendell and I used to exchange photos. He had the largest collection. Ron Smotek had the second. I had the third. The youth corresponds with some 45 of the world's leading ufologists, including Dr. Jalen Hynek. Then it says Dr. Hynek, who Kal has met and talked with. Yes, I met Hynek when I interviewed him for the John Dosa TV show on tour. And I'll never forget real quickly when women would come into the room, Hynek would take his hat off out of a sign of respect. No one else did. And that really made an impression on me because it was really cold when he did that tour for the movie at that time where we were. And I kept my beanie on, but because I just never took hats off for anybody. It just wasn't my generation. But he was such a gentleman and apolitical. Wasn't a freeman-like at all. And what a contrast between the two. And then it says here, in addition, Kal is supplying Dr. Hynek's Center for UFO Studies with photographs. The center hopes to copy the photographs, which are in slide form for sale to the public to raise funds. Yes, I did that. Not all the photos I sent were finally chosen. They had, I think, 20 or 30. They're trying to keep the price point down for them. But yeah, I was very much involved, and we talked a lot on the phone and spent time together. And this is stuff that people don't know. It's stuff Kevin Randle and my critics aren't going to tell you. But again, I'm pointing out here that I was in touch with everybody except essentially Kevin Randle. And there was a very good reason for that, because I didn't feel like I could get further to the UFO truth if I engaged him on anything. I'd read his articles, shake my head and go, okay, in my opinion, he's a believer. This was my business card when I was a kid. Okay. In fact, I worked so closely with Hynek that I stuck it on Hynek's form he gave me. Okay. The short questionnaire form we would hand out to prospective witnesses. As the newspaper article noted, if the report initially passed this first one-sheeter, I would send them a 10-page questionnaire. Okay.
Oh, okay. And
that's in the article. These are articles written at that time. Mm-hmm. It's real. And to show you what a small world it is, Stephen, and this photo's never been published before. It's in my upcoming autobiography where Kevin Randle is also nailed again. This is me in the middle of the class. I was the top student, the most famous, and all that other fun stuff. Top student when I wanted to be. The actual valedictorian was the guy to my right, Byron Young, who it was funny because he used to ask me for the answers in the advanced science class. We were friends, but my grades were such that if I really loved this subject, nobody could beat me. If I didn't love it, I didn't care. That's just the way I was. And I finished high school in 3 years, stayed the fourth year only so that I could graduate with friends and not strangers, and was just doing college before I was even out of high school. And my girlfriend was in college. I was, one of those advanced students, as they said. Now, the reason this photo is being shared is because of this. Years later, after we graduated, Young would go work for a guy named Bob Schaefer. What a small world. And I had no contact with Young after we graduated. We weren't close in high school. Nice guy, studied his ass off. But I had my little clique of friends, and we were doing paranormal investigations and stuff. And he was more like a hard studying student. He got into computers and IT, and I thought that was interesting because I did too. But it shows you what a small world are. What are the odds of graduating, the top 1 and 2 students, so to speak, well known, all that, and then he ends up working for Schaefer. I end up writing this book that brings full closure.
And for the can you explain Bob Schaefer for the benefit of?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Good question. Bob Schaefer is one of the top UFO skeptics. He gets falsely accused of being a closed-minded debunker. In the Friedman sense, he's not. He believes that he would accept a UFO case if he could find one that was real. And my first contact with him wasn't very friendly in high school because I went to go take it to him on behalf of Friedman, and it didn't work. So he and I are friends. I'm going to be doing a show with him. Hopefully, I'm going to invite him on my show soon, Kal's Corner. And then, of course, I'm going to interview him for the book and send him a copy of this because this comes full circle. It brings closure to Schaefer's expose of the Hill case years ago, which Phil Klass has sent me a copy of. So anyway, speaking of this stuff here, here's a letter from Phil Klass, and I got along with everybody. Everybody. Nobody had a problem with me. It was only when the Meyer case came out, and the Meyer nuts, they're the ones that started the bullshit. Even Wendell wrote me that letter, as is in our book, as you know, Stephen, that said no hard feelings. Everyone got along with me. So I don't know what people's problems are now because I haven't really changed. I'm more blunt because I've realized if you don't speak up, people continue to bullshit and bullshit.
Sure, yeah.
But, and take it binary where you can. But look at this letter from Phil, 1980. I'm so rushed at the moment, including preparing for the big Smithsonian Institute. That was a debate with Hynek, Hendry, Maccabee, Schaefer, Oberg himself. First, let me say, if I had your writing talents when I was your age, I might today be another William Shakespeare. You're an able writer and so on. I appreciate the compliment, but in my opinion, I have no writing skills. I write like I speak. So if I hadn't met Stanton Friedman as a kid, saw his lecture, had never seen a lecture before, said I could do that, knew everything he had talked about, actually added more. I started lecturing, became very popular, did a lot of media stuff as a kid, became very famous. And then when I went to write it up, it was just like, well, this is how I would say it, and I type it up. If that makes me a good writer, whatever, I don't care. As long as you can understand what I'm saying, that's all I care about. As far as style goes, that's for real writers. Anyway, here's some more. This will be the portfolio by the end of this year, and I'm happy with it. And no one has a portfolio like this who investigates this stuff. And I'm not saying this from an ego standpoint. I'm saying it from a factual standpoint. Again, look at the book here, Spaceships of the Pleiades. It is the definitive expose on Meyer. It is the best-selling expose on Meyer. The second book, it was the first book by a major publisher, the biggest in the world, Random House, to expose Kevin Randle and all the Roswell claims. In fact, the marketing campaign for it was E equals MC 22. Einstein was right. It showed Einstein. It showed that it exposed the false claims in the top 22 Roswell books, including Kevin Randle's. Then the wisdom of Deepak Chopra's random buzzwords. I'm going to update that later when he gets his virtual self online. That's an excuse to do it. The FBI secret counter mutilation files had those years ago. This destroys what Molten Howell claims it did in the 80s. Annie Jacobson expose, which is being updated with multimedia interactive elements being added. The Wendell book, same thing, with new material updates on what Mikey did to you and I and Melissa.
That nutter's still emailing me.
Well, let's give them an update. We've talked about it. Let's do it. The Rex Heflin thing, which will be part of the software I'll get into in a moment. Solving the Hill case, hopefully will stop the movie from coming out, lying to people, exploiting it. We don't need more of that. Nothing personal. And then, of course, the Roswell debris thing, that's an issue. Unfortunately, Randle goes down in that one too, but that's just physics. Then, of course, the making of Bigfoot. I got that book published via Prometheus. Helped edit it, wrote some small parts of it, did the National Geographic special where we found the guy who wore the suit, found the guy who made the suit, found the guy who sold it to Patterson, put them all back together, except Patterson, he was dead, recreated it and destroyed the Patterson case. That's a fact. People are in denial. if they say that didn't happen. Then the last two cases, I've got the originals from there that prove those cases are a hoax. And here's another thing too. These were my deliverables under Total Research and Critical Thinkers as of the year 2000. So major ones, there's a bunch of other ones, but these are the high level ones. So on the 30th anniversary in 1993, I did Larry King Live, Solving Kennedy's Murder. It's a fact. Anybody can check it. I got famous for that. Fox TV, exposing the Meyer case, announcing I'd gone undercover, all that, beat Jim Delatoso on that Bob Kiviat special. Then what Kevin Randle won't tell you, you ask him why, is all-day MSNBC special, 50th anniversary on Roswell. Again, showing it was Project Mogul, contrary to what Randle says. Then, of course, NBC Lisa, solving the Phoenix Lights, proving that those reports were not credible, a lot of them. I was invited on that show because I was the objective person. They even tested me with 3 videos, tried to fool me. It didn't work. Then, of course, something Randle doesn't talk about, which surprised me, Stephen. I debated him already, and I beat him. He appeared on ABC TV with me in June of 1997 on the 50th anniversary with his lying hoax witness, Frank Kaufman. It was 2 against 1, and they lost. He didn't even mention this, that I'd already beaten him. So I really don't need to debate him, but of course I'm willing to. But I've already done it, kicked his ass, and he admits now Kaufman was a hoaxer. And Randle, as I said, has endorsed more phony Roswell witnesses than any other most famous Roswell author. He endorsed way more fakes than Friedman did. And Don Schmitt is not credible either, his former partner. That says a lot about both men. Then, of course, the last thing, again, I remind people of this because we did this when I worked at Boeing, Discovery Channel, back when Discovery Channel was credible. Secrets of Area 51 revealed. We proved no aliens there, and that a lot of these reports are just disinformation by the U.S. government to hide secret projects using UFOs as a cover story. And that's why we talked about Lazar Meyer briefly. Again,
That's
these
special. I'm sure I've seen that.
Yeah, it's we the same producers filmed 2 of them. One was a Phoenix Lights one, which Bruce Maccabee did most of the footage in that. And Bruce did a very simple experiment, which I'll share with you quickly. All he did is he stood at the location where one sequence was taken where they seemed to disappear. What they did is they fell behind the mountain range, so they weren't visible anymore. And all he did is he took a piece of glass and he drew with a marker the line of the mountains, shot through the camera, and you can see when you redo the film that they fell behind the mountain. They didn't wink out or, cloak or go to another dimension. That was nonsense, Jim Delatoso, New Age type stuff. So again, the theme behind all of this, folks, is real history matters. We've all heard the expression and the truism that those who fail to heed the lessons of history are doomed to repeat its failures. That's true. And look at the history of the human race. Unfortunately, that problem continues. But when people are denying things to the point where we disagree, so you must be a this. No, I just disagree. Doesn't mean I'm anything. That's when society begins to fall apart and we see the problems we have today. And when you and I met, we talked about this. You have some of these slides. This is the sad, pathetic state of the United States and its people as far as what they believe. And Kevin Randle, I'm sorry, has fueled some of this, not because he's interested in pushing the truth. I can prove he has known that some of this is not true. And then he has to explain why he would still proceed with that. I haven't gotten every UFO case right as well. But when I got Major Marcel's military file and was able to easily see that this guy was not what he claimed to be, I got with the truth. Same with the Hill case. But that's the difference between me and some other researchers. So if you look at the number of people who believe in these conspiracies, JFK, 160 million people, the lowest number of people who have ever believed in Kennedy's murder has been 51%. Today it's 61%. It was a high of 81%. Look at George Bush lied about Saddam's weapons of mass destruction. 44% believe that. Aliens exist, 29%. Saddam Hussein was involved in 9/11. 87 million people believe that. Obama is the living Antichrist. 40 million Americans believe that when this survey was done before Obama was out of office and before Trump took place. The Apollo moon landings were faked. 21.9 million people believe that. These are the frightening numbers. And this is before the recent election, where half the country who voted believes that there was some sort of rigged whatever. And now we're in a pandemic, going into a pandemic where 63 million Americans think that vaccines are dangerous. Hello? We've got to stop this, Stephen. So it's gotten to the point in my thesis work that I can predict the political party now. I've been able to do it for years with an algorithm, and it is more right than wrong. Based on the conspiracy I hear, I can tell whether you're a Republican or a Democrat. On the case of the Cosmic Watergate, 62% of Democrats believe in it. 23% of Republicans, 15% of independents. On the Kennedy, this is how bad it was during these years, okay? This is how it was over the years. The point is, it remains very consistent today. So 61% of Americans believe the wrong thing. They are in denial of real history. And it's only about the death of our president, right? No big deal. And, you know, look how it is versus Republicans. And I'm not saying Republicans are perfect. No, they're not. I often call them Thuglicans because they are.
Well, they believe, you know, also, though, you have a lot of right-leaning people who were into that letter of the alphabet conspiracy. And please don't even say it, but you know which letter of the alphabet.
You do. Exactly.
So,
exactly.
Yeah.
That's why I'm saying
the problem on both sides.
They are. Bingo. They're both extremists. Okay. Now compare how Democrats and Republicans do to independents. It seems like independents are the ones with the most brains and think critically the most. Studies show that they tend to check things out more rather than he's a Republican, he must be telling the truth. No, sure. He's just a Republican. And then you compare the average of people who are neither, and you can see that the two parties are way out of line with reality here. And here's what an academic study showed. It says, we found clear evidence that the United States is a strongly conspiratorial society, according to study lead Christopher Botter of sociologist Chapman University. It's a credible study. We see a degree of paranoia, and in the responses, most indicative is nearly 1/3 of the respondents believe the government is concealing information about the North Dakota crash, a theory we asked about that, to our knowledge, we made up. There you go. So I've done this experiment before. Penn and Teller inspired me to do it on bullshit when they did this sign a petition to ban water, and these bozos would sign it, not knowing what they're signing. They signed a petition to ban dihydrogen monoxide, you know?
Yeah, okay. I remember that. Sure.
Yeah, it was a great little study. So American society, because of Kennedy and these other things, and the government has played a role in fueling distrust, of course. Watergate didn't breed confidence in government truth and ethics, but it's reached to the point now where the media and researchers in bed with them, and it's all about ratings and money and who cares about truth, your 15 minutes of fame, whatever, where things are out of control. And that's why there is this pushback, and I'm working very quietly with others to do this. Now let's get to the software, and I'm using this as a real example just because it was on the show, but it's really not about him. First of all, I don't like using this word. He says, I think he said I like to or do call people liars. If I use that term, I think I can defend it. A lie means you know it's not true. If a person's wrong, that's different. I have no problem with that.
No, I think a lot of people are asking in the live chat about the UFO software. Are we going to get to that next?
This is the segue into it. Okay.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah. Okay. So basically, we found with the software, there's an AI module to it that Kevin Randle uses these major areas to do his stuff. And the software proves this. And we're using this algorithm for other case modules and cases. Basically, he just says things that aren't true. Okay. He denies real responsibility for something like when Don Schmidt is a fake and has a fake degree, and Randall works with him for years and says he didn't know that. And then, of course, there's selective choice of data. For example, he cited Edwin Easley, where he says that he takes his testimony about bodies at Roswell. That was exposed in my book. You can go look it up. Easily didn't say that. Randle cannot produce recordings that say what he claims. Randle was taking a person who was mentally not all there and leading him around. And that is a fact that was exposed in my book. It was cherry picking his data. Yet Randle will also say that the other body witnesses are not credible, yet he endorsed them in his books. And then, of course, there's irrelevant attacks, which I frankly don't know why anybody would do that. For example, he said out of the blue that at least he's trained in weapons. Okay, I don't know what being trained in weapons just because you're in the Army Reserve or whatever has to do with Roswell. And of course, I'm trained in weapons too. Who cares? Different ones, but anyway, I even own them. But it's completely irrelevant. But who knows how people take that, you know? Okay, so now let's get to real quickly not showing up for the debate. Again, that didn't happen. In fact, when we were in Prague, okay, for the debate, this was the location here, okay? Not only did I show up for it, but I made a point to appear at the memorial for the victims of communism because I was going to hit Randle with the question, which I'll do right now. I ask and challenge him to answer this. How can you, saying you love your country, Dr. Kevin Randle, accuse the government of threatening to even kill Roswell eyewitnesses, harm them, silence them? You served your country honorably, I presume. You retired with benefits and a pension. You write books that libel and slander the U.S. government over a cover-up that isn't real. I have a problem with that. I have a problem with anybody who would do that, okay? And so I'd like to know from Randle and anybody else why they would say things about the government that aren't true about this. And this brings up an issue that Phil Klass did. You probably know that Phil Klass turned Stanton Friedman over, reported him to the FBI, because he was saying all kinds of conspiracy stuff that just could not be true. Now, Phil Klass has been condemned by UFO believers. Well, that's a cheap shot. Oh, really? It's not a cheap shot to make up and lie about a cover-up that doesn't exist, and you're also helping fake data and misrepresent it to fuel that lie? I'm sorry, that's pretty special. So I was going to ask him that question at this debate, but when I asked that it be moved to December 7th, Pearl Harbor Day, which I thought was rather symbolic and patriotic and was going to be a great platform for this question, I was never told the debate would happen. I'm still waiting all these years later. No problem. And because I hate communism, that's why I wanted to go there, and I still fight against it. I'm sharing with you now, and this is leading into the software. I think maybe you've seen this, Stephen. This is a database I created recently as part of fighting against communism, and as part of a new book project where I expose the truth about the COVID virus, okay? This database, I did it. It's one of many I've done for many, many years. It's just my latest major one in a different area. It's actually a module that's part of the Chinese Communist Party database, because I do have databases on the Communist Chinese Party. And as an analyst, I do write papers and things, giving my views about things, and I pass them up the chain. I also report on it. Okay, so again, to be clear, no evidence they made the virus, but they did infect the world deliberately. This isn't right-wing stuff. This is cause and effect. Anytime you send people out in the world who are sick, they're going to get other people sick. Doesn't matter who they are. And of course, as you know, this book is coming out. Melissa's the publisher, and it exposes everything. And the fact that this software exists and that I have reported on China for many, many years, all this stuff, I mean, it's a matter of public record, full-page specials, warning people they're the biggest threat to civilized society today and all that, again, has been true for years. It's not acknowledged by my critics, just like Randle didn't tell you that I beat him in a debate. That's a frame from it right there. Okay, now, this book exposed Randle. This one will. My autobiography, What I Think I Know, which is based on what I think I've learned all my life traveling, that exposes him. And this one puts the vampire to bed permanently. All the stuff I've been alluding to, all the background stuff, comes out now. My diaries, they've been found. And Randle made the comment that my book didn't disclose anything new or original. No, I made a point in that book to use publicly available data to show to people that if you just go through the public data, this isn't true. But now that even Randle didn't get that message, or UFO believers have not, I'm going to let everything out. And it proves that these people just are not credible. And here it is. Here's Stan's letter to me saying, long time no hear. Thought you would be interested in the enclosures with Lazar, Don Schmidt, blah, blah, blah. So Stan's excited. I'm jumping in saying, can you believe what this guy's saying? And then, of course, Randle, and then, of course, Stan sends this to me. They're going at each other. He's sending it to the newspapers. And then, of course, Randle's trying to do spin control, saying,
listen, with respect, though, Cal, everybody's here to hear about this software, and we've had an hour and 6 minutes of you beating up Randle, who's not here to defend himself. So can we listen? Yeah. I understand you guys are both passionate in your belief that each of you are wrong.
It's not that. This is how it's related. I'm showing you this because this is foundational material in my databases, in the new software.
Okay.
In other words, it's not just me saying this. I've done that. It's here. Okay. So these books have it in there. This is a smoking gun. You may remember this report. Again, I knew everybody. I made a point to avoid Randle back then. Here is Len Stringfield's stuff for me. You may remember this here, right? But what nobody knows, because I never published it, is that when we got through with the witnesses, we did a much better job. Okay? So all this is coming out in the software. And because it started with HyperCard, this is a chart here that tracks the evolution of the web and all that. This is major stuff. In fact, this is the KMI article that proves what I was saying about Lazar, that I created a file called Rosetta Stone in the HyperCard system for what else? His volumes of UFO information. This was UFOComp. I've now adopted parts of this for everyone else to use. Okay? And that's what I'm going to show you in a moment. This is foundational stuff. Never on the internet from 1998. And I say here, I live for the day Johnny can get whatever he wants on a computer, a total freedom of information. This is the future. He said, motioning towards a small computer on the dinette table. I won't see it in my lifetime. They'll have to read it all about me on a HyperCard. The web didn't exist yet. Okay? So we took this stuff from our computer studies in HyperCard and FileMaker. We created these information sheets, like on Kennedy's murder, proving very easy on one single page each part of how he died. This is the moment the lapel went through both of them. Okay? The skull shots, the bullets, etc., recreating everything under total research. We've done the same thing with Randle and UFO data now, where we've put all of this into the databases, and we've added machine learning and AI in there, and we found stuff that humans wouldn't know. This is Kennedy stuff, for example. So we used HyperCard. The system you see behind it is my M3 workstation. I don't know what Randle uses, but you know, this is what I do. And HyperCard, of course, was way ahead of its time. And this was my project. This was, again, a database used for the new virus project. And here is what I'm going to share with UFO researchers. And I'm going to start giving them this software, okay? Basically, I use different systems that I have designed. I've coded on my own over the years, tracking everything from terrorists to IT issues. And this is a database, for example, that has articles that I've had published over the years. And you can see here that there's tasks, you know, you've got administrator, you've got browse, you've got create, and then you've got deploy, and you've got different options under those. So what I'm going to be doing is working with UFO researchers, just a small group of them, to make sure I understand the nature of their archives and how the software can help them the best. And I believe that some of what you're seeing now, I'm going to send it essentially as is, but empty. And then, of course, people like Erica Lukes will be able to copy stuff, undo, redo, clear fields, sort, copy and paste, have quick views based on matching records, unsorting records, publication date. The possibilities are numerous. Reports that can be generated, importing and exporting data, okay? And I'm going to give them a base set of functionality to start with. If they need more, fine, you know? And you can see here that all you do is you basically click on the items on the left, and then the detail comes up here in the mid part. And then on the third pane, you have both the original JPEG or PDF, And then, of course, you have the text. And then you can have anything you want. I can have as many dots that I can flip, with my fingers or with my mouse. And then you'll notice up here, you've got other databases. Based on what you're looking at, it'll automatically show those once you have the relations set up in there. And you'll notice that this database that I use covers everything that I do. Down at the bottom, administration and tasks, analysis, intelligence, archaeology, history, arts, literature, philosophy, religion, political, social issues, science, technology. So by putting data in databases for years, writing programs that go around the internet and scrape stuff and put it in there, it's a very powerful tool. And I'm going to be releasing these again for researchers to do it. This was a quick dump when we decided to use a different method, just putting some stuff at random regarding the Tic Tac case. We have a dedicated module. It was created to investigate Harry Reid and ATIP. As I recall, Stephen, I think I sent you the presentation that was generated.
Yeah, and is this run on Mac and Windows? Or is it like a standalone program
Oh, yeah.
that you download?
Yeah, basically, its software is called UFO Comp. You'll see the screens in a moment.
Okay.
It runs on Mac. It runs on your iPhone. It runs on Windows. What it doesn't run on is Android, because we're not sure what we're going to do with that yet. We can port it to Android when it's working fine on the other platforms.
Sure. Yeah.
Because at that point, it's a formality. And to be honest, you're going to get the most powerful experience using Apple's platform because it's more integrated.
Here's another good question. Somebody's asking, is it open source? I think he means, is it open source as far as what information is in the database, or will there be a select few ordaining the articles that are included?
No. I'm going to release a suite of tools to a small set of researchers like yourself, Erica Lukes, Jan Aldrich, Philip Mantle. I'll go over their names in a moment. And I'm going to work with them to help modify that software to empower them to do the right things. Whether they want to share that data or not, that's up to them. They'll have the ability to keep their stuff private, but also share stuff. The big thing that's going to come after this is workflows. And that's where I have to really engage researchers like yourself. We all do things differently in different ways. And by making workflows from the data that's in there, you can get stuff done like, okay, find all the records about ATIP and make me a book. Boom, here it is. Now you just got to clean it up and refine it. And you've seen the results of the rough stuff that we've been doing here that I've kept you informed of in the last year.
Yeah. It looks like Kal has a very good system for generating content, which as a content creator or somebody that has to generate content, this appeals to me because let's say, for example, I was going to do a show on the Cash Landrum incident. This database might have pictures, newspaper articles that I could share. And
that's right.
To me, it would be a great and valuable tool to have for my show.
Exactly. So here is Real UFO Comp. That's the name of it. And I started this in high school. I hoped to use an Apple II computer, but it just wasn't far enough along. So as the letters show that I published, I was giving computers to the Lorenzens and researchers, giving them Macs and stuff and doing all kinds of stuff in secret. But again, I'm not trying to harp on it, but you notice I avoided one person because while I was working with almost everybody else, it just didn't, I'm just going to let that speak for itself. Real history matters. So on the Scandals of Kevin Randle module, there's case modules. You have his claims. For example, Randle said that Kevin Randle told journalist Art Levine, and you can ask him, have him on your show. He'll confirm that Kevin Randle told him that the Roswell evidence is not compelling, it's not credible, and it makes him throw up. So Levine calls me and says, why is he telling me this when he's got these books out and there's a special? I said, I don't know. So you'll notice on the tab here, in the case modules, this happens to be just about Randle, there's the claim, whoever makes it, then there's the truth, then there's stuff that allow you to verify that truth, like this link, then there's files that support that truth, so you get the little bullets that you can swipe, to scroll through. Then you have AI, which comes in there and shows you what it found. Then you have options. Options has two levels. There's options internal, which are, to me, for example, it's getting to the point now where the rules in AI that I get alerts like so-and-so seems to be trying this against you or whatever. And then it shows up in the options tab and it gives me a list of options, like.
So somebody's asking, so is this going to be for It's not for active UFO field researchers, only armchair researchers.
No, it is for active.
And by the way, Michael, it's not a good idea to automatically go to the negative. And you're in my live chat, and you always with the guests go to the negative. Like, ask a question, but don't make assumptions. Let the guest answer the question.
No, it's software for ufology, not ufology. I can't be more clear than that. If you are studying UFO data credibly, you're a ufologist. If you're not doing it credibly, you're a ufologist. That's it. It's not name calling. That is the real meaning of the word. Blame Stanton Friedman if you disagree with me. But there's no question that is the real meaning. So this could be any case. It doesn't matter. I'm using a real example here because it's a real example. Other stuff here, okay? It has WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get. No surprises. Works on iOS, iPad, OS, and Mac OS. The desktop version works on Windows, okay? It's multi-user. It learns as it goes along, so you don't have to keep typing the same stuff in all the time. It's got.
By the way, Cal, I'll volunteer to try if I get a copy to try to see if I can get it to work in Linux with Wine, the emulation layer for Windows. I think it'll probably work.
My guess is
most things do now. Like before, you know, a lot of stuff just wouldn't work in Linux with Wine, but now almost anything does, except for super, like the super latest and greatest games and things.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
It has workflows, basic ones. We will customize those over time, and they'll be, you know, in collaborating with other fine colleagues, wonderful researchers out there, and you know some of them. We'll come up with a workflow that we can all say, hey, let's all do it this way, you know.
Sure.
Workflows like send this to Erica, send this to you, send this to Melissa, whomever, you know. Imports and exports, top file formats. So of course, if you see something,
here's a good question. And you should know, Cal, Michael runs this sky watching organization, and he even gives people free telescopes to try to get people looking and finding UFOs and things. So he's asking, the software contain options to upload live footage while actively sky watching?
Yes. In fact, it can be on the internet, or its power is also, it can be off the internet, meaning I gave it the ability because I had to have it myself. This was back in the days of Palm Pilots and laptops.
God damn, you're old, Cal. Typewriters.
I know. There's no
Palm Pilots. You had a what is that other thing called? A berry.
I never had a BlackBerry.
BlackBerry. You had a BlackBerry.
No, yeah, I never did. No, I went straight to the iPhone because I knew a real phone when I saw it. Anyway.
You say so.
Plus, I knew Steve was onto something. In fact, I saw him again the last time before he died. There's photos of us together. Anyway, that's another show, I guess. But anyway, back to the features. Got built-in forms. Let's say you see a UFO. You want to send it to MUFON. Send it to MUFON in their form. It's built in. Don't need their permission. There's also our form, which is much more extensive, with due respect. And it can go to whomever. There's able to store text, video, audio, PDF, office files, virtually anything. Yes, we use containers.
V wants to know, but what does Dr. Kevin Randle think of this software program? No, let's not get him started. He's focused on the software. Let's stay on the software.
It prints customizable charts and graphs, including palette and color control. It toggles between different GUIs based on the device, okay? Which means when it starts up, it asks you, what do you want to do? Do you want to do M3 workstation like I have, single monitor, or, you know, iPad or iPhone? You touch it, the interface does it, it optimizes itself for that space. Copy and paste between apps and devices, okay? So what if I want this data on my phone? I just copy and paste it. Has views for lists, tables, forms. It reads and talks. Secure ID, facial recognition for authentication. After all, I'd hate to see Kevin Randle look at my phone when I wasn't looking and see what I really know about him. Just kidding. It takes dictation. So if you don't want to type anything, you can just talk to it. Send mail from the app. If you don't want to, while you're looking at something really cool in your UFOComp database, you can immediately do email. You don't have to quit and go to another app. Imports and exports the web in case you want to grab stuff off there. It supports search, sorting options, secure password fields, generates reports, etc. The feature list is quite extensive. So the people I'm going to start getting this to, and you know, have been in the loop for a while are you, of course, Erica Lukes, Jan Aldrich. I haven't really talked to him much. I think he's probably heard about this through mutual acquaintances. Paul Dean, I've talked to, Melissa, yes, and Roy Neal. Now, Roy Neal is somebody that almost nobody has heard of in the UFO field, but Roy is my former roommate at Apple Claris. We've done tons of stuff together. He knows where all my non-alien bodies are buried, and he can prove a lot of the stuff I've been saying. It's amazing nobody bothered to check with him all these years because he's in my book, Meyer book. But anyway, he's the one who made the models with me and went to the Bay Area foothills to test the models to simulate the stuff we're going to do in Switzerland because we didn't have, we had to test the models, make sure they worked in the mountains. So Roy knows everything. Roy is working with me on this software and this platform. And so all I can say is Roy is a top engineer in Silicon Valley. You can look at his LinkedIn profile. He did the first rotoscoping on the Mac ever. That was a program called Video Graffiti. And of course,
I looked him up. Yeah. Pretty well accomplished. Pretty well
he
accomplished
is.
guy, yeah.
He takes no prisoners. He's a bad boy and he's a badass. Very good guy. I would give my life for him. He's incredible.
Another great question, and this might be beyond the scope of your software, but this is Michael's specific interest. Can active skywatchers connect with one another live through this while skywatching together? If someone in LA sees a UFO heading north, can that person signal another skywatcher for verification?
Yes, they can. But to make that happen, I'll need to work with people who want that unless I choose the protocol. Obviously, something on the web is a common bridge, but absolutely. One of the things that I thought of years ago in high school when I first started to design this, and again, I did it for my own use all these years, was a simple philosophical issue.
I'm sorry. And somebody asked if Pete Peterson is in the database. That's one of Kerry Cassidy and David Wilcock's fake sources. The guy that said he was a Ronald Reagan science and technology advisor, but he never worked for Ronald Reagan.
He's not in my database.
I can add him as soon as I get the software. I'm going to add my personal investigative files to the database because sometimes I want to be able to pull up something from my past shows or investigations. So it'll be in there. There'll be a whole page about information about that clown.
Yeah, because again, what I'm doing, and Erica Lukes is probably going to be the most intensive tester on this, meaning I'm going to give her the UFOComp software, the archive module. It's got different modules. And she's going to populate it with whatever she wants. It's up to her. And I want her to give me feedback. I want her to say, this works, this doesn't, I need this feature, doesn't exist, whatever. I have some sample records in there, a few of all different data types, because she has a bunch of everything. The idea is to have her then start importing the stuff, and then have there's a feature in the database where you can clone itself and then send it to whomever. She'll then send it back to me so I can look at it, get back to her, send it back to her, and we'll keep fine tuning it. In the meantime, I'll be having discussions with Jan Aldrich, who of course runs the wonderful 1947 project, just getting up to speed on what they're doing, because they've already got a lot of data scanned. It needs to be optimized. It could be done better. The Black Vault has a lot of material too, but to be honest, it could be arranged a lot more efficiently, in my opinion. I'm a data guy, library sciences guy. I was the top student in my school over it, got the outstanding award, was in it in Boeing on the standards committee. So I eat this stuff. I love it.
Yeah, listen, Cal knows, I just started to try to write a book or books, and I'm having a real hard time because, like I have to stop to go find a picture on the internet, and then I got to check to make sure it's copyright free so I could use it, and then put it into the book thing, and I'm just doing all of this with like Microsoft Word, and it's not good. So I think this could really help a person who wants to write a book spit it out really fast, a lot faster, right?
Yeah, in the workflows, it does several things. For example, we used to have before, like I showed you, the press information sheets. Reduce an important issue to a single sheet of paper so that everybody can understand the who, what, where, why, when, and how. If you don't communicate all that, you don't have clear communication. Okay, so we did that with Kennedy. That's a very tough thing to do. And that's what this software does. So let's say you've got the bottom line in your database on whatever. The workflows with one click or one touch, depending on your device, will allow you to instantly do whatever. Okay, make it a book, kick out a rough article, send a memo to so-and-so to warn them, whatever. The workflows are going to vary from person to person. There will be a set of standard workflows that we will all agree, this is how we should do it. You know, that's another thing about science, is you have agreed upon methodologies. So
sure. Somebody else asked a good question that's kind of what you're talking about now, though, is they're asking, is the database only local, only used in your own instance of the application, or is the database shared between multiple instances of the app, or could it be shared between multiple researchers?
Yeah, it can be both. It has to be both. First of all, there are times where you need to collaborate and share it. We'll use, TCP/IP and web protocols for that. There will also be things like I have a firewall here, which certain people have access to. No one else does. There's also individual, like I realized I needed to take my data out with me in the field as a kid. There was no internet, so I had to store it somewhere. So it can do all of that, and you determine what you want to do with that data. So we will be using the internet as the common platform for shared data like that. There's also the ufology.org website, because again, ufology is a platform. It separates ufology from ufology. Doesn't matter who the researchers are, doesn't matter what the cases are, but each thing it solves is verifiable, and it's a binary, or we don't bother. There's most UFO cases you can't do anything with. You can't prove it happened one way or another. Well, we can't run stuff on that the way we can run on the binaries, like the Hill case. When you take the Hipparcos satellite data, compare it to the fish map, game over. Now it's a question of, will the UFO researcher tell you the truth? That's a different issue. Where this workflow also helps, Stephen, is like dealing with the media. In the last year and a half, since I've been back in the US secretly, it wasn't public, working on a lot of this stuff, I did have meetings with some producers and network types, or was in the loop of people who had those meetings. And they said, history, discovery, these networks, that we know this is bullshit, but until we syndicate it for another 3 years or so, we're not going to entertain exposing it. And I have a real problem with that. So one of the reasons—
Yeah, and a lot of people don't know, but some of these media companies, they make money on both ends.
That's
so
right.
They'll promote hoax UFO material for a while, get it into syndication, drain every ounce, every penny of being on the side that the story is real or factual or correct or really happened.
Yep.
And then once the bubble bursts, then they make another set of things, entertainment experience, exposing that it was all bullshit.
Yes, and it's time to revisit a dynamic that I don't know many people know the story, but it's a true story. I would encourage you to ask Bob Kiviat about this. I'll give you his number. He'd be a great guest on your show. When we did World's Greatest Hoaxes, Secrets Finally Revealed for Fox, Fox was so happy with that result. It was the only special ever to take out all those top mysteries in one episode. And people were like, well, how can Fox do it? They're eating their own babies, because they promoted alien autopsy as real, quote unquote. They didn't, but you know, there was some hype in there. And then Kiviat, the same producer, takes it out. And Kiviat, of course, did a later special in England with help of Philip Mantle, who solved that case, the second autopsy film. And Mantle is a top researcher. I admire him very much. I'm going to share this software with him. He has a great archive. Make a long story short, Fox was going to start a paranormal programming division, and Bob Kiviat was going to be head of that. But a certain bozo named Chris Carter, you may have heard of him, he objected to that. And he threatened to take X-Files away and kill the movie. So it never happened. And then 9/11 happened later. And I was in Europe at this time, and we had done 2 paranormal productions. And we were going to separate fact from fiction. But it got killed by 9/11, because they said, until aliens are bringing down skyscrapers, we don't care anymore. And then, of course, Carter threatened X-Files. He had penis envy over Bob Kiviat's the real deal. Chris Carter is just a sci-fi nut, conspiracy type. So this is a revisit of that, because once this stuff is there and people are using the software, the next time the New York Times writes a stupid article that hypes, I'm just going to press a button and let the fun begin. That's the idea.
Okay,
that's why I have that options tab. That options tab.
About the I know here. So here you're saying that you're going to be giving this to some beta testers, including me, to try out and to help refine it. But when do you see it being like a public download where anybody can give it a try?
Well, first thing is I hope to get it out in the public, in everybody's hands. When I say everybody, I mean where they can just download the damn thing in whatever version. It'll be beta first because we're in alpha right now. It will be hopefully by the summer. But as I talk to Jan and others, even you, Stephen, if you tell me John Smith up the street's a good guy too, that's fine. The idea is not to play, hey, we've got a secret, we've got some tools you don't have, we're special. No, the idea is, as you know, when you roll out software, especially when you're winging it based on what you think your understanding is of your peers, you got to start somewhere. And I know that you do need things like a date and a time and a timestamp and a record number field. I know you need some of these things, regardless of even if you're a ufologist. But once we have it out, then it'll be open as a free download, official beta version, and then we'll freeze it, and then it goes everywhere. And by then it's been populated with data by the testers. I'm releasing some of my archives too. That way it's on the internet and local. And the ultimate testing will be for the public when they are downloading and uploading things on the internet or storing it locally. Or let's say you and I are doing something, I just send it to you, by touching this icon. So that's the idea. And so it'll be by the summer only because the software is going out in their hands in February. And that's right around the corner.
Somebody's asking if you can integrate WikiLeaks to the database. I don't know that.
Yeah, we can integrate anything. In fact, let's say that you have an already existing gnarly system that doesn't need fixing. Let's not break it. You can even use this software as a eye candy front end for anything on the back end.
Yeah, I have an interest in this because I think it could really help me, like even just make slides for my shows, or because all of this stuff that you guys have seen that Kal has brought to the show, it's all been created with this, or in one form or another, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And again, I'm going back to the slides here. I try to make everything pixel perfect. I realize there's some Hebrew there, but I use different languages. I'm not going to apologize for that. Anyway, so again, these are screenshots. I could easily open the database and scroll through this. You would just see article after article after article. Again, look at the COVID thing. This is a quick way to come up to speed every day on the major reporters. So I have a screen where I follow UFO groups. So all the groups that Chand Hana runs, for example, they appear as a tab on this screen. I haven't included that screenshot here, but it allows me to quickly see what she's doing. She manages a lot of groups. It sure beats opening up each fucking window one at a time. Hello, So at the very least, we're going to have more efficiency. We're going to have things that look better. We're going to have things that look like real apps. And, again, we're just able to do all this. And this stuff here I've shared with you. I know it was a long-winded intro, but it gives you the background of how this is possible, what was really going on at the time, all these years. And that's why I have no patience for the bullshit out there that people just make up about me. They weren't even born that time. But this is real, And so Randle and all those other guys, Wendell, Mikey Horn, not Wendell, he's not here. They all have to address all this stuff because I was there. I did it. It's all here. So I'm releasing this stuff. And then I'm going to take a look at the original documents like this publication. Do I keep it or do I donate it? I don't know. I'll decide. I'm a human. I like to have some things here and there. I do miss these people. But this shows you how deep we were. Look at that, Stephen, versus what everyone else was doing. This was as good as a UFO investigator could get. My first question as a guy in high school to Len Stringfield was, why didn't you at least have a professional artist there like a police artist does for a victim of a crime? Hello?
Yeah, that's pretty weak.
Yeah, it is. And God bless him, his heart was in the right place. And that's when I first heard about Jesse Marcel and all that. Len Stringfield had heard about him as well, and wrote about it. The myth is that it was all Freeman, not true. So anyway, this is a smoking gun. And this is courtesy of Al Reed, a man who heard about my work and got in touch with me. And he said, the reason I want to jump back into this, Cal, is because you're doing science and forensics. Yes, I was majoring in it until I met a guy named Steve Jobs. So here it is. We were doing this. And this graphic is relevant in the Roswell updated book because we were able to use anatomy to prove that these witnesses were lying. We found out, for example, that the index finger moves a certain way because the thumb is in the way. And the aliens don't have a prehensile thumb. So this would move differently. This stuff would behave differently, you know, if it were real based on what they described. And we were able to use anatomical physics as much as you can in a theoretical mechanical reconstruction to prove that this guy really didn't cut open anything. He's full of shit. And that's why we detailed things to nail them down in the minutia. Because when a witness describes only this, he can get away with a lot of things. Well, it had 4 fingers and webbing between it. Ooh. But when he's getting down to details like this, yeah, it looked like that. And then you can nail him because the devil's in the details. And that's exactly what we did. And it's all original stuff from the 70s and 80s. It's never been on the internet, but people who know me, you know this stuff. So in this book, there's a chapter on all the major mysteries, what I think I know, what I think I've learned. I've been doing this for a reason, at least one, right? So all this is related because life is one big relational database. The challenge is to find all the connections, optimize them and use them, and, you know, exploit them in ways that are positive, that push the human race forwards. And that's what I am trying to do and have devoted my life to. And that's why I can pull this stuff out. And I'm glad that all my archives from around the world, including the 11 tapes of Bob Gimlin chasing me, trying to get my footage back, have all survived. And I got years of stuff coming out. That's why I have a 500 book deal. I've got enough material for 500 books, you know?
Yeah,
so
that's pretty.
There you go. You know,
and being able to write one at this point.
This is, again,
I heard your first one is the hardest, and then they get easier after that. So, you know.
I just know that there's no relation to how successful a book is versus how much work it takes to get it done. I never thought my Roswell book would be successful at all. And I did it only in 6 weeks because I was disgusted that there was no book coming out by any publisher telling the truth. And we had solved Roswell earlier. And I thought, well, they told me if you can get it to me in 6 weeks, you got a deal. And I said, okay, I'll just write it. It was one big brain dump. So the reason it has a fast pace is because I didn't have a lot of time. I didn't have the time to write the book I'm doing now, Diary of the Last Investigator, because now I can take my time and I've got the diaries and all the original notes, and they're all in there as exhibits, and nobody can argue with any of this. It'll be clear that whoever does is in denial and lying. And so it's all coming out, and it's time I share this stuff. One of the reasons I was able to do stuff on terrorism and write all this stuff is because over the years on these different things like China, Russia, 10,000 articles and all that, it's because I've been following this for years. I helped play a small part in ending communism in Russia in '91. I'm surprised top investigators didn't figure out that when I was there, it was also the Billy Meyer thing. There was some synergy there. I mentioned who trained me, what I did, everything, even photos of me in East Germany at the time. It's all coming out because I'm back here. I'm not doing that stuff anymore. All my archives are here, hundreds and hundreds of videos over the years of the country. Again, it's all coming out. I don't have a life except this stuff, except now I'm in love, and hopefully this one will work out. And I'm trying to figure out how to do both. juggle this.
Yeah, it gets complicated. Life gets very complicated when the woman enters the equation. Like you know, I remember being single and just being able to do anything that you want. Mm-hmm. Then that woman comes along and you gotta make a lot of compromises. But I'm glad you're gonna start sharing this software. I'll give a report on it after I get to check it out and try it out, and then maybe I'll try some sample, you know, do some slides that I'll use in the show or something. Yeah. And somebody did ask, why not just make it a website instead of a binary, which is a valid question, I guess. You could just make this cloud-based, I suppose, and anybody could access it.
That's a great browser. That's a great question, and I thank whoever asked that. I can't see anything. I've got 3 monitors showing other things now, but it is going to be web-based. But to get it web-based, we want it to be working at the local level first, and that's why we're doing the Android thing at the end. There's functionality in this that Apple right now is the only one who can really deliver some of that, and I don't care who delivers the functionality, I want it delivered. So this is a controlled explosion, for lack of a better term, a controlled rollout, meaning it's going to start local, and then we do the tests where the same database is on a web server. Absolutely. Then you interact with it.
Yeah, I figured you could make it. You could.
Oh, absolutely.
You can host it on the web one way or the other. I could figure it out how to do it, even just like
but
desktop to it or something, and have it somebody's system with it open. Sure.
Right, but the one thing it does that no other app does is if you want to grab it and go locally, you can, meaning it'll run locally. It does not need the internet. Now, if you don't put the data,
which is great, because I could be at the cabin with no internet and still be able to work on something, you know.
Right. You know,
really cool. I like local software. I'm not a big fan of cloud anything. It's there's no cloud. It just means somebody else's computer, and I don't like that. I like all the power in my own hands, you know.
I agree. I like a mixture of both. I use the double entendre, meaning the architecture is a DNA architecture, distributed network architecture. DNA also means deoxyribonucleic acid, of course. So, but I have a DNA built in, a IT DNA. So it can either run locally, individual, mono or distributed where everybody's seeing it. Because I envision over time, for example, Stephen, I assume you'll be doing your show 20 years from now, that you'll have something where you can hit a button in a workflow on your end, and all of a sudden you're letting your audience see whatever, that right now would take several steps to do the same thing. I'm just going through the slides again real quickly to go back to the UFO comp thing. I want to point out a couple interface features real quickly, in case they're not obvious to people. Going through, here we go. Okay. The buttons down on the left that are red, it has 3 levels of security. There's yellow, red, and green. White is used for normal text, of course. So in this coronavirus database, using this protocol, because I was getting data from China, off Chinese servers, they didn't know it. Some of the stuff came in as red because it had to be hunted down, or it contradicted what the official line of the Communist Chinese Party was. The yellow stuff means it needs to be verified, call it a gray basket thing. The white stuff is a fact. So I was able to prove that, and I did a show on this, that the Chinese knew about the virus outbreak in months earlier than they admitted, and that they were actually infecting people in hotels, protesters, to get them sick and kill them. Now, over here, the interface buttons, you got plus, which means you can add records. You've got a arrow, which means you can refresh if you think it's not updating. You can force a refresh. You've got backwards, forwards, previous, next buttons. You've got search. You can do single search, preset searches, or multiple search criteria. For all practical purposes, unlimited. Then you've got this button here, which is going to give you different options, like how do you want to view it? Do you want to send it to somebody? Do you want to print it? Whatever. The workflows will vary from person to person, but also there'll be a core set. Then, of course, the last icon there after that is the -1. That's to delete a record. That 2 icons, the globe, will take you to the internet, anywhere you want to go, okay? Built-in browser. And then you've got... and it's based on Apple's WebKit. Then you've got, which is the industry standard. Then you've got lists, like list view, a view for 21.5 inches. My monitors are 21.5 inches each. As I joked with you, Stephen, the other day when you told me you got a 27.5, I have to now scale all this shit up so that it is full screen on yours, so that you can. So thanks a lot for the extra.
Put you to work. Yeah, put you to work.
Another screen here about the getting back to the software. Yeah, again, original documents are in the case modules. So when you see the Scandals of Kevin Randle module, the Roswell module, whatever module it is, they're all different cases. You've got the original documents in there to prove it up. Nothing is left as he said, she said. Otherwise, there's no point in doing it. That's why you have this stuff in there. And then Yeah. So when you use the iPhone or a smartphone, you'll see the middle tab here, okay? Because the interface obviously is different based on the device. So this thing expands like this based on your screen width. It's up to you. You have full control over it. You can see here that under the admin tasks that we're going to start this with, because we need to have a base set to start it with, you've got basic things like copy, copy all, cut, copy, undo, redo, clear field, and paste. So what I could do is click on this, image, and I could hit a button and send it to somebody. That would be a workflow issue. Or I've got these, options here. Again, you've got sort built in. We can add more. So in the interface, there'll probably be a line below the stuff that's built in that reflects more buttons below that are slightly different color. That will be your custom workflows that we've programmed for you because you host a show. So your workflows are going to be different than, say, anyone who doesn't, for example. Then you've got, again, text version, PDF version, files versions of this. You can sort everything alphabetically, and you'll notice again the same universal nav bars and stuff, because after doing a lot of tests, there's a set that is, peanut buttered across everything. Again, you'll have file tabs that will take you inside things, that are very straightforward. Claim truth. We have red, yellow, and green. As far as red, no, you better be careful. Yellow, caution, trust but verify. Green, it's a fact, and that's why we have the green alien smiling. It's truth. The red one, he's full of what. So I'm really excited about this because it's great to release stuff out there. I no longer have to worry about, it's classified or whatever. And to just be back and have all the archives having survived their treks around the world, literally, also in storage in different parts of the world, so they were secretly recovered and put back, and now we're getting it all in there, and now we have a relationship on top of all that. One other thing too, one of the modules we're releasing in February is epitomized by this here. There's been an issue that has come up over Nick Pope. Here's a document from the Ministry of Defense that seems to indicate that Nick Pope wasn't what he claimed to be. And I know that when I was secretly in England getting a UFO video for Bob Kiviat before the British Ministry of Defense could get it, I beat them to it. They never saw it. And I sent it to Kiviat. I did an inquiry into Nick and found out that things were a bit different than what the literature indicates. So Philip Mantle has asked me to put this out there. And there is a module in the new software that basically will ask people, hey, what about this? And it goes out to wherever is relevant and tries to find out. In this case, it's going to the UK government and various intelligence agencies in the US to find out what is the truth about this. It needs to be run down. I would hope that Nick or anybody making these claims would just come on and answer them straight up. But
and listen, Alien Scientist is here, and he just had him on. He just had Nick Pope on his show. Mm-hmm. I'm going to invite Nick Pope on my show. I don't know if he'll come. I've invited him several times before, and he didn't. And I don't blame him for that. It's more a channel. Alien Scientist has much bigger channel. So if you send it to him and he has him on again, I'm sure he'll ask him about it.
Well, I don't need Nick's. I mean, of course, one way of investigating this is to just ask Nick. But I had the same problem, and I'll tell you a true story real quickly. Years ago, when I was in Europe, not only did I run the trap on Nick, and again, I got that footage of that UFO that the couple had filmed, and it was a military aircraft. So I got it before the mod got it. And that's when I was running the trap on Phil Mantle or Nick Pope, and then sent the video to Bob Kiviat, who I went to get it for in secret. Now, I asked Nick Pope to be in a conference I was going to sponsor, a former intelligence community people, to talk about UFOs. He told me he wouldn't be part of that conference because he was retiring. And what I've noticed is that Nick has managed to, in his retirement, appear on big shows, so he's not really retired. He's selectively retired. That's his choice. But when he turned it down, I wasn't surprised because, as you know, I've run the trap on a very interesting question that Randle and everybody avoided, even Friedman. Why does Israel's Mossad spend no time on UFOs? It's hard to avoid any Jewish scientists, especially after World War II, reverse engineering anything alien. You can't. And secondly, Mossad or any other intelligence agency would spend all their resources getting the secret meta materials or that aluminum foil that couldn't be bent with a 16-pound sledgehammer. They would be all over it. They would steal it. Nothing has happened because it never happened. So until the Mossad question is asked, it is being avoided. And that is where this is going. I'm going to use the algorithm to run the trap on the Nick Pope document as a test to try to chase down classified UFO-related issues with the intelligence and military establishment. I have to wait, for example, until the summer for the UFO Task Force to release its report on the Tic Tacs. Before that report comes out, I have a date with the Inspector General on the issue. I've had to wait because of the pandemic to move those things forward, including SEC possibilities against TTSA. As you know, they've been on hold like Kvyat's lawsuit since the pandemic.
Yeah.
So
everything's on hold, even the legal system.
Exactly. Yeah. So all this is being done. So I want to be clear. I'm not accusing Nick Pope of anything. I've been asked as a person who supposedly is somebody in this field to raise this issue, to call it out publicly. I know that if this were me, I would nip it in the bud. That's just me. I am now going to use the software to run the trap on this because it needs to be tested. And if it weren't Nick Pope, it would be some other document. I was actually going to use TTSA. It was redundant, but it could test the software code. Now I'm not going to. I'm going to use the Nick Pope document. It'll take some time, and I'll continue on the TTSA stuff through the new UFO task force. We've never had a administration where the head of the task force is now the vice president and someone else is running it. Yeah, right. Anyway, this will be fun to see what the government says about their own subject in the fall. And I want to have enough of this ready so that when they do respond, I can just hit a few buttons and let the digital missiles fly, as they say. And that's where this is all heading. The reason I got awards years ago for some of my weapons designs and things like that is because I literally reduced the act of acting to one mouse click. That saved a lot of time. And that's what I want to do here. But you have to have a whole lot of stuff under, behind the scenes to make it so that it's one mouse click away.
Well, I'm glad you could bring us an update on the software and on all those kind of things. I think we're coming up on 2 hours here, so I think we're going to jump off here, and we'll see what happens insofar as maybe having you and Randle on together. If he would agree, I would host it, even though all this makes me uncomfortable. But I know people want to see it, so listen, I'll try to make it happen. We'll see what will happen.
Well, I appreciate that. I just want people to know that I didn't not show up. I was there. Secondly, I've been waiting to debate for years. I've already debated him and he lost. He doesn't endorse Frank Kaufman anymore. He did at the time we debated. He was with Kaufman on the show. They lost. ABC TV, matter of record. I'm telling you because he didn't. I was surprised when he recounted our history. He didn't go into those details. I would have, as a matter of here's what happened and didn't. And it's just to get to the truth.
Sure.
I wouldn't feel awkward or being in the middle because you host a show and your show is called Truthseekers. If I'm on your show and you catch me saying something that isn't whatever, call me out, please. It should be true with anybody. And I know you well enough in the short time I've known you that you're a credible, straight up guy. So it is a little disappointing.
Well, I'm trying.
You are. And you know your stuff. I've been impressed with some of the minutia, and I'm excited over your Altos project. And
yeah, me too. Maybe someday I'll finish it. I've gotten, this is just the way things work with software development. Like I fixed a 2-page list of bugs and then like another 2-page list of bugs arrived. You know, like I
Yeah.
thought I got through it, and we're going to release it soon though. And he's talking about my Linux project, which is basically Linux on steroids. It's 100 gigabytes of software all in one download, basically. And yeah, we can talk about that another time. But I want to thank you for taking the time to do this tonight, and we'll see about having you back either with or without Mr. Randle for various topics.
Yeah. Actually, I'd like to, if you're open to it. I know I ask this out of the blue, but I debated whether to show you some Kennedy imagery because that's another can of worms. But
That's a whole other show.
Yeah, I'd willing to come on the show and go through how we did our study. And the longest show I did on it, solving it, was 5 hours live, and I won. So I'm just saying, I can prove in your show. They hit me with everything, how he was killed, and anybody can go check it. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a fact. All facts.
You know, I think I've never done a show on the Kennedy assassination, and I know that that's just a can of worms to open because people are so passionate one way or the other. But yeah, we could do that. We could absolutely.
Yeah, let's do it. And what I'll do is I'll take you through the frames. I'll get you the Zapruder film, digital frame by frame copy, the best one. I'll show you exactly how it went down. Have everybody join in the chat room. And let's do what we did in England years ago at the 40 Times Unconvention, where I took the audience through it and, did it. In fact, it was, I guess I don't have it here. Anyway, Amazon's had for years a 2-part video where we.
Sure, and I'm gonna get you in touch with the alien scientist because he has some information that you probably would want to look at. He's got lists of the Israeli scientists and what they're studying. So yeah. So listen, friends, I want to thank everybody for joining us. Cal, I'm going to play us out here with our new outro, and then just stand by. Well, let me there we go. Yeah. So I want to thank my guest tonight, Kal Korff. I want to thank every one of you guys that showed up in the live chat, and especially those who had some excellent questions about the software that he's developing and will be releasing shortly. Until next time, friends, my name's Stephen Cambion. Good night, and God bless all of you. Stand by, Cal.